training and nonviolence training. A couple of just sort of welcome notes. There is a restroom through this door and to the left. There's also a sink for water if people need it. There are still a few cushions hanging around if people want them. We do have a mic. I don't normally use one, but how is the volume in the back? Can you guys hear okay? All right. So to give you sort of the agenda of how tonight is going to play out, we're going to take about an hour to do a Know Your Rights training for activists. We're going to go over the basic rights you have when you're out on the streets interacting with police officers. We'll also go over some of the more common crimes or infractions that activists in the past might face and what they are and what they mean to us. And then I'd ask that you save any questions for the end, and we can have a brief Q&A time period. Then I'm going to turn it over to Michael Kerrigan and Kelp. They will continue with the nonviolence training portion of the evening. You want to give a brief lowdown on what that looks like?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is just talk about what nonviolence is, or more specifically what nonviolence direct action and civil disobedience is, and kind of think from a historical perspective in terms of what has worked, what have people done in the past. Serves an example for us right now. We will talk about occupation, hopes, and fears. So I think people go, what am I getting into, or what's going to happen? And it's good to know exactly what, things may happen. And then we're going to do some role-playing on handling confrontation. Because, everything's going to go well, things are fine. But it's good to be prepared to know that you have the skills and the teamwork and the team with you, that you can deal with problems if they come up. And then we're going to break into affinity groups where we'll explain more about that later, where people form small groups where they can make decisions about how they're going to participate in the action or scenarios we may come up with. The idea being is kind of building solidarity, developing skills, building confidence. So come Saturday, we're prepared and we're, fired up and ready to go.
All right. So, because I may duck out after my portion of the event and come back, I just want everybody to know there are Know Your Rights brochures on the back table in English and Spanish. There's also a version for teens if any families want to bring their kids and want to kind of know the slight nuanced differences for juveniles. I also brought a bunch of my business cards, which on the back side has what you would say to a cop if you end up in their custody. We actually suggest that you just hand it to them and not say a word, but we'll get to that in just a minute. There's also So, in case anybody has to ditch out early before we get to this point, in order for the police to arrest you for trespassing, or really the vast majority of crimes that we're going to be dealing with in these types of situations, they have to give us a warning. So there will be announcements made that will say, leave or be arrested, get on the sidewalk or be arrested, or something and you will be arrested. And at that point, you have the choice to either walk away and avoid arrest, or intentionally know that you might be placing yourself in that scenario. So for those of you that have concerns about kind of getting randomly picked up unknowingly and unwillingly, that's very, very unlikely to happen. All right. So we're going to kind of focus on three of the primary rights that you have under both the U.S. Your Fourth Amendment right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. This is also called your right to privacy. And, of course, your First Amendment right. Your First Amendment right being, the right to assemble as well as the right to free speech. So we have the right to congregate as well as speak our minds, however we may choose to do that. So your Fifth Amendment right is probably one of your most important. You've probably heard the phrase, I'm taking the Fifth. And what this means is you never, ever, ever have to answer a question put to you by anyone, except for a judge in a courtroom. So whether it's the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, sheriff, local police, your principal, your mother, you never have to answer questions put to you unless you're in a courtroom by a judge. The only way you ever have to answer those questions is if you willingly consent to answering them. That's an absolute right. You don't even have to say your name, though we will discuss what the possible ramifications of that will be. So the bottom line, if you don't remember anything else regarding the Fifth Amendment, is you never have to answer anything put to you by anyone. If you shrug your shoulders and just kind of go like this, all of those things mean that you're giving them permission. And that means you have no right to fight about it later on. The other main way that the police are going to be able to search your home or search your property is because they have a warrant. That's normally very unlikely in the scenarios we're going to focus on today. The other way that they may be able to search you or your property is if they are going to detain you, meaning they're investigating you for a crime. And we're going to talk in a lot more detail about that as we pull through this. In a post-9/11 world with a Patriot Act, a lot of our Fourth Amendment rights have been taken away. Email, cell phone communication, face crack, all of those things are highly monitored by the government, and they don't need a warrant to do it. I should also note that when we're in a public space like this, police officers have the right, like every other citizen, to be present and to enjoy this training, and we hope they will if they're here. So, okay, your First Amendment right, I think we all know this, but don't forget that the First Amendment allows us to assemble to grieve our issues with the government, and especially in what's called public forums. In the law, there are two different kinds of forums. There's a public forum and a private forum. You have the most constitutional rights to First Amendment expression in a public forum. And the general gist of this is, if traditionally we would expect that free speech occurred at that type of place, then it's going to be protected. Public sidewalks, public parks, places called Free Speech Plaza, national forests, all of those have been deemed public forums, which means we have the most expansive rights to express ourselves. That can be in burning the flag, that can be in using profanity. All of those might be the edges of what we consider free speech, but they're all protected First Amendment expression. The only exceptions to that are doing things like yelling fire in a crowded movie theater or defaming someone. If I say you have a loathsome disease and it's not true and you end up losing money because of my false statement, that's what slander and libel and defamation are. And those aren't protected. But everything else basically is. Everything else. The last paragraph, if you are a non-documented citizen, if the government can come up with a legitimate reason to deport you, you might have an extra concern in exercising First Amendment rights in a public forum. Regardless of 9/11, regardless of the Patriot Act or anything else, our constitutional rights cannot be taken away. If we don't exercise them, they will be diminished. And so being part of a movement like Occupy Eugene is a powerful affirmation that these rights are alive and well, and we need to vigilantly and diligently exercise them. So, when you're dealing with cops, there are basically 3 different levels of dealing with a cop. When I use the word cop, I'm talking about sheriffs, Eugene police, FBI, ICE. You name the 3-letter word, they all will be under the gamut of cop for this training.
Excuse me, ICE?
ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They sometimes call it La Migra. Okay, so 3 different levels. Each one has a different level of seriousness and a different level of what you can do and not do. First level is mere conversation. Second level is detention. Third level is arrest. And these are all listed in that brochure, too. So I can walk up to any of you and ask you who is your leader or what is your social security number, and you, of course, have the choice to tell me that you don't want to answer that information. In the same way, the police can walk up to any of us and engage us in conversation in the same way. But we have the exact same right to simply tell them we choose not to speak with them and slowly walk away. And in general, in protest scenarios, we advise you to not engage with the police. Often they are attempting to look for information that shouldn't be disclosed to them. If they think that they've got an easy source of information, you will be contacted repeatedly, usually, by them. And you never know what you're saying and how it might be used against yourself or others. The other thing, too, without a witness, your statements could be misconstrued or changed in some way. When you are interacting with police, if you choose to do that, you should be aware that you are likely being recorded. Almost all police officers these days have audio, if not video, recording capabilities on them at all times. So we advise that if you choose not to speak with the police, you should politely but firmly simply walk away.